Suze is going to make sure they get on the Zoom so we can see it. I just texted her.
Okay, is the class in person as well?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't realize. Okay, I'm going to hop off and go join in person.
Okay. See you later.
See you later.
I think that's crazy. Right there.
Don't do this.
Yeah.
And I want my circle.
How are you?
Good.
Okay, and the first three, I think, are already tasked, but you can.
I'm so
Yeah, that's so cool. Do you have too much more?
Series of six. So, but you can go to the instructor's website and we'll tell you how, and then you can see when he's offering those again, and you can pick them up and get certified. Yeah, so it's okay if you miss the first few ones. Oh, there he is. Okay, so now
I was just CPA. That is really convenient.
Okay, I'm just going to start. Is that okay, Doug?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. Thank you guys for being here today. I'm Janelle Lester with Older Public Title. I've been in the title business 27 years. I love helping new agents and helping them become mega producers. It just really thrills my heart. It's my passion. So, but I'm glad you're here today. Our office is at Tennyson and Parkwood, just up the road. And I did bring some marketing materials. We've got 2 great classes this week. We have one on new builds, and then we have one on buyer representation. All the schedules for March are back there. I also have some city flyers. So if you're showing reload people or just buyers in general, you can put the city stats into your folders. And I have more cities besides that I can email you as well. So again, thanks for being here. Joe Hockaday is my personal CPA. He has been kind enough to say yes to coming in today. I know it's a busy time of year for taxes. And the first time I had Joe come teach realtors about taxes was 2012. And I know that's kind of when I started using you, and some of my realtors started using him. So he's here today to share his wealth and expertise with us. And I saw you were Dave Ramsey approved, or what's that? What's that? It's like designation, or what's it say?
Yeah, it was endorsed local provider. Now it's called Ramsey Trusted.
Ramsey Trusted. Okay, well, and that means a lot to a lot of people. So I saw that. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So, and then he's going to be back next Monday for cost segregation for your investor class. So anyway, okay, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for having me. Yes, I'm a CPA up in Frisco. We're at Lebanon, Ohio. Got 12 full-time employees, and we bring in college kids, interns, and teach them how to do taxes during busy season and stuff. It's been a really, really neat plan. They want to be there. I'm paying them a market wage, and they walk out of there on April 16th, and they know how to do tax returns, which is kind of a neat deal. They want to learn. It's fun. I've been doing this for a little over 25 years. I've been a CPA since 1983, started out in public accounting at Ernst & Winnie, which kind of dates me now. It's called Ernst & Young, right? And was CFO with small and large companies. And back in 2003, I thought, you know what? I'd always done tax returns, friends and family. I thought, I'm going to do this by myself. I'm going to create a practice. So I did 95 tax returns that first year out of my home. And then I rented a room in a suite, an office suite at Lebanon, Ohio. And then I rented a second room, and then I bought the whole suite. And then 3 years ago, bought the next door suite. We're probably going to do about 4,800 returns this year. It's a very, very busy office, as you can imagine. Yes, I'm swamped right now. I worked all weekend and what have you, but I kind of figure this is a nice escape for an hour or so, which is clear my head a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about what it means to be self-employed. the taxation issues related to that. I'm going to talk about certain specific deductions. We have a lot of realtor clients and obviously a lot of self-employed clients. Nowadays, if you have a W-2, mortgage, interest, real estate taxes, you don't need me. Okay, go do TurboTax. Not that I don't help folks like that, little old lady, little old man returns, but primarily our basis is in helping self-employed people or people with a rental property, which effectively is a business also. Anyway, so we're going to go over some of the deductions that I get more commonly asked about, and we'll talk about some audit risks, and then some tax savings ideas, and then some things that I've seen so far for the 2022 tax year. So anyway, okay, so you are a realtor, okay? You are self-employed. When you do deals, you earn a commission, and that commission shows up on a 1099 that your broker gives you, and nobody's taking any taxes out of that money, right? So as far as the IRS is concerned, you have a business, and that activity is going to be reported on your personal return. It's not a separate return. It's part of your personal return on Schedule C. And by the way, I do this kind of 101. So if I'm insulting anybody's intelligence, please forgive me. Make it as easy as possible to understand. Anyway,
I think we're at that point where we need the 101.
Not a problem. Not a problem at all. That's what it's going to be. So on that, it's called a Schedule C, and that's where your self-employment activity is going to be reported. And at the top, it's got the revenue. That's going to be your commission income coming in on the 1099, and then various expenses, office supplies, auto, business meals, yada, yada. And it's going to yield a profit or a loss. That profit or loss gets added to your other income, and you pay income taxes on that. If you have other income of $100,000 and you've got a loss, then you end up paying taxes on $90,000. A $10,000 loss, you end up paying taxes on $90,000. If you have a $10,000 profit, you pay income taxes on $110,000 in my example, right? However, those dollars that are coming in through that activity, that self-employment activity, are also going to be subject to self-employment taxes. What's that? That's the IRS's way to collect Social Security and Medicare taxes on self-employed people, on us self-employed people. When you were an employee way back when, you would get a paycheck from your employer. They would take out taxes and Social Security and Medicare. Your employer would match that Social Security and Medicare and send it off to the Social Security Administration with your Social Security number attached. You would pay 7.65%, and your employer would pay 7.65%. Remember those days? When you're self-employed, you pay both sides of that, 15.3%. So for example, if you have a $100,000 profit, you're going to pay income taxes on 100 grand, plus right at $15,000 worth of self-employment tax. If you're in the 24% tax bracket for your income taxes, that self-employment income is really in the 39% tax bracket. Now, it's not exactly that. There's some algebra, but for argument's sake, that's the easiest way to calculate it. In other words, you got to plan for it, right? So you want to maximize your deductions as much as you can. People ask me all the time, what can I write off? What can I write off? Well, it's kind of logical. You can write off expenses related to the production of your income, okay, of the income. You meet a client for a cup of coffee, they pay for theirs, you pay for yours. You talk about real estate. Yes, absolutely, we can write that off. If you have staging expenses, if you have continuing education, SUPRA, all those related real estate expenses that you might have, broker fees, licensing fees, things like that. Certainly you can write that stuff off. A couple of the more common deductions people ask me about is vehicle, okay? Realtors typically have one of their largest deductions going to be vehicle. There are only two ways to write off a vehicle. Only two. The first is cents per mile. It's pretty simple. 10,000 business miles, 56 cents a mile, you have a $5,600 deduction. The other way is business percentage usage of actual. Let's say you take 10,000 business miles, 15,000 total miles. That's 2/3. So you can write off 2/3 of your depreciation on your car, 2/3 of your gas, 2/3 of your insurance, 2/3 of car washes, oil, battery, tires, all your actual expenses. Notice in both methods, you need total business miles, okay? In an audit, the IRS is going to require you to produce a log saying that on July the 97th, I met with Fred Jones at Starbucks in Little Elm, and it was a 20-mile round trip to talk about house hunting. On June the 32nd, I met with Susie Smith, and it was about potentially hiring her as an assistant. It's got to be The spreadsheet has to be where you went, what day you went, how many miles you drove, who you were with, and what was the business purpose, okay? I do thousands of returns, and I can count on one hand the number of clients who keep a contemporaneous log. I certainly don't. Some of my clients use MyLIQ or TaxBot. They get in the car for business, they swipe it left. They're going to go to grandma's for Thanksgiving. They swipe it right for personal. They plug this into their PC at the end of the year, push a button, and it prints out your business miles. Okay. I'm not even disciplined enough to remember to do that. I tried it once and I was like, oh, crud, I've been driving business for 3 months. I'm not even disciplined enough to remember to do that. But what I am disciplined enough to do is I take a picture of my odometer reading on January the 1st. I take a picture of my odometer reading on December 31st, which becomes January 1st for the next year, right? There I have proven my total miles driven irrefutably. I got dated pictures. This one said 10,000 in January. This one said 24,000 in December. I drove 14,000 miles. It's provable. I live 3 blocks from my office. Commuting is not deductible. That's considered personal, so it's not very much for me. I know my driving habits. Whenever me and my wife go someplace, she has to drive because I make her car sick. So I can legitimately come up with a log equal to 80–90% of those total 14,000 miles I just mentioned, right? Now, I might have on there that I met you in Carrollton at the Starbucks on July the 39th, and we talked about your 2020 tax return or whatever. Now, did you and I do that? No, we did not. But the IRS is going to call you up and say, do you remember meeting Joe 2 years ago? Okay, I have hundreds of clients, as you can imagine, with thousands of tax returns. My point is I can make that log look the way it needs to look, okay? And that's perfectly acceptable to do in an audit. Am I lying or cheating? No, I'm not. It's just who has, and the IRS knows people don't keep logs. They know that. In the audits that I've been in, you know, it's kind of like, give me something reasonable and we'll go with it, okay? Everybody's driving habits are different. I have some realtors, you know, guy does one deal, 10 grand worth of income, we'll do 15% of his miles, his total provable miles. I have other folks that make $500,000 and we're using 98–95%, okay, of their total miles. They feel like they can support that if they needed to. So don't make this harder than it is. That's the point I want to make. Don't make this harder than it is. Obviously this year or in 2021, you didn't take a picture of your odometer readings. A real easy thing to do is go back to an oil change or a car repair toward the first part of the year, some dated odometer reading on that, one in the latter part of the year, and we can impute the total miles for the whole year, okay? In an audit, by the way, you'll have to produce those documents because they want to know how many total miles you drove. So you'll have to produce that. Mine's the easy way to do it. Just take a picture, okay? You can take a picture now. Here we are in February, or March almost, gosh. And then in December 31st, that's 10 months, right? And then just impute the other 2 months. Won't be hard to do at all.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
If your car has a logo on it.
That does nothing for your, that again, there's only 2 ways to do it. Cents per mile, whether you have a business and it owns the vehicle, whether you have a logo on it or a wrap on it. Now the cost of the wrap's 100% deductible.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But that doesn't instantly make your car 100% deductible. What the IRS looks at is intent. Now, did you go up to that soccer field to watch a soccer game? Or did you go up to that soccer field to display your wrapped vehicle? You hear where I'm going?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, we get a little bit of leeway that way, just on how you coach, how you portray that use of the vehicle. Okay. Now, if you'll notice, the first method, the cents per mile, you can actually write off more than you spend. Okay, if you've got a car with relatively good gas mileage, not a ton of repairs, and you're not a drag racer and you don't have a lot of tickets, so your insurance rate's rather reasonable, you can write off more than you spend. That second method, you can never write off more than you spend. Okay, you're always writing off a percentage of what you spend. So over time, and people ask me this all the time, how should I buy a vehicle for business and personal use? One answer and one answer only: buy a late model used car and put 500,000 miles on it. You basically get the IRS to buy the vehicle for you 2 or 3 times, okay? At the end of the year, you hear on the radio all this, oh, go buy yourself a big SUV or go buy yourself a big truck and write the whole thing off. Yes, you can do that. Okay. If you do that, that means you're automatically using that second method and you're taking that big depreciation. If you buy a SUV or a truck that has a gross vehicle weight over 6,000 pounds, like a Yahoo Tahoe or a Yukon or an F-150 or one of those Expedition, one of those bigger vehicles, not a CRV, and weigh over 6,000 pounds, then you can write off the business usage of the vehicle. Okay. Got to be careful about that, because if you use that second method, the business percentage usage of actual, and take the big depreciation hit, you can never do cents per mile.
Oh, that's a good caveat.
So you're basically, it's a gun with one bullet. You get a big giant deduction that year. Going forward, you really don't have much to write off. I mean, gasoline is usually about 8 to 9 cents a mile. Insurance, maybe 6 or 7 cents a mile. What's that? 15 cents a mile compared to 56. Okay. But you can do it. That's the first reason, though, you need to be smart about it, is you don't have anything to write off going forward. The second reason that it might not be a good idea is because the Tax Reform Act of 2017 that was passed used to be you could do a like-kind exchange with a vehicle. You guys are familiar with 1031s for real estate, right?
Right.
The Internal Revenue Service outlawed those for vehicles starting tax year 2018. So no longer can you take the gain on the sale of that vehicle and just lower the basis, the cost of the new vehicle that you bought. You got to pay taxes on it. So if you buy that car for 70 grand and then sell it for 40 grand 3 years later, you're paying tax on that 40 grand if you fully depreciate it. So you got to be careful. I'm not saying don't do it. It's just typically I would never recommend that unless it's a blip year. I had one guy who he made 60 grand a year. 1 year he made 300, and it was just a fluke deal. There was no way he was going to do that. And if truth be told, he made 60, 65 grand the next 3 years, right? But he had that one blip year where he made 300 grand on this deal that he got involved in. And he went and bought a car, a Yukon, on December 18th. And on December 19th, he drove to my office and we talked about his taxes. And then he drove home and he parked it and he didn't drive it again until January 1st. So he had 18 total miles, 18 business miles, because he went to talk to me. So we wrote off 100% of the vehicle. And again, that was a blip year. His tax rate was way higher than normally. Normally, his tax rate's 20%. This is 32%. Okay, so it made sense in that circumstance. But so I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying we need to be really, really smart about it, because we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot. If you're in an upwardly sloping to the right environment, in other words, you hope to make more money next year than you did this year, heaven forbid you don't have that vehicle deduction anymore. And oh, by the way, what if they raise taxes? Okay, so it's something that you really need to think about before you pull that trigger. Home office. People ask me that all the time. Oh, I don't want to do a home office because it'll trigger an audit. No, it won't. Let's do the math. Most home offices are 5 to 10% of a house. Okay, your 2,000 square foot house, 100 square foot office, that's 5%. All we can write off of the home office is the incremental things. For example, mortgage interest and real estate taxes, you're already writing off. So we're talking about the incremental things. Let's say your homeowner's insurance is $2 grand. Okay, let's say your utilities are $6 grand, that's 8. Let's say you've got $1,000 worth of repairs, that's 9 grand. And let's say you have $1,000 HOA, that's $10,000. Let's say you're doing a 10% number. So you can write off $1,000 from your income taxes. Okay, that'll lower your taxable income by $1 grand, right? You're in the 24% tax rate, you just saved $240. The IRS does not chase people down for $240. They're a business like you and me. Okay, so in most cases, pretty much all cases, I don't recommend not doing that, because it's not a red flag. It's not enough money for the IRS to mess with. They don't chase people down for hundreds of dollars. They want to pop you for 10 grand. Okay. It costs them money to send some guy out to your location or have you come down to their office and spend half a day and then to squeeze $200 out of you. It's not going to happen. Okay. They're a business like you and me. How do you define the home office? It must be exclusively and regularly used. Regular is pretty simple. Okay. You're doing all your bookkeeping or whatever, your administrative tasks at your office in your home, right? That's pretty easy to define. Exclusive has two meanings. One is you don't have anywhere else to go. Okay, like for instance, I can't have a home office because I got my office, right? And a lot of realtors here, or a lot of realtors I know, sometimes they have their nameplate on an office, that's their office. Sometimes it's like a bullpen situation and whatever's open is what you use. In that circumstance, you don't have a regular place to go. You can have a home office. But if you've got at your broker's location, an office that's yours, that has your name on it, then you've got somewhere else to go. And so we might not qualify because of that exclusivity. The other definition of exclusivity is that's all that room is used for. Some of my clients have said, oh yeah, I do all my work on my dining room. Well, in order to get from the kitchen to the bathroom, you got to go through the dining room. That's not exclusive. Okay. Typically has to be a corner, a part of a room, like, you know, the corner of your game room or something like that, or better yet, a separate room entirely, a separate bedroom. Okay. Will they come audit a home office? Yeah. I mean, if you start claiming 30, 40, 50% of your square footage is a home office, that's the red flag. But again, we're talking about more money now too. I've had one in my whole born days career. I've had one situation where a client got audited. They were taking like 40% of their house. Okay. And I went with it. These guys would fly over to, this is a while back. You can tell by what they did. Every year they would fly to Japan and buy a bunch of anime CDs, bring them back and sell them on eBay. $10 a pop, $350,000 worth of them. So they had one bedroom that just had tons of CDs in it, if you can imagine. They had another bedroom, you know, with those rolling things and boxes. That's where they packaged to mail stuff to their clients, customers. Then they had another room where there were 2 desks set up and there were 2 computers. It was clear. The IRS agent said, I want to see the home office. I said, oh, here's some pictures. No, I want to see the home office. Here's some more pictures. No, I want, okay, fine. So Friday at 7 a.m. one Friday, and it wasn't a surprise visit, it was all scheduled, but we show up at my client's house and I take the lady up and she sees these rooms and no tax due, no change. It was fine. But that was a pretty unique event because again, we were taking such a large percentage. But again, the typical home office is 5 to 10% of a house. You can imagine that. That sounds reasonable. Let's see, what can and cannot be written off? You can write off, as I mentioned, homeowners insurance, HOA dues, repairs and maintenance, excluding pool, fence, replacements, or improvements. Okay. The IRS says that if you get your pool cleaned, it doesn't affect your business. They're right. Unless you're running a swimming school out of your backyard. I do have one person that does that. We write off all their pool expenses. You can write off lawn mowing. You can write off tree trimming. Painting the house is considered a maintenance, not an improvement or a replacement. Fix the AC, yes. Replace the AC, no. Okay. Fix a stopped up toilet, yes. Buy a new toilet, no. So we don't want replacements or improvements. Remodeling the kitchen, certainly not.
That was going to be my question. No remodeling.
Yeah, no remodeling. Now, technically you can write off and actually you can depreciate your house. I don't do that with my clients because what that does is it triggers a gain when you sell your house. So that if you write off 10% of your depreciation on your house, which by the way, the depreciation period for a home office is 40 years. So it's not very much per year at all. You get saved maybe 30, 40 bucks in taxes. But what you've done is when you sell that house, you've triggered a gain. The biggest loophole for individuals in the entire Internal Revenue Code is the fact that if you're married, you're sheltered on up to $500,000 of gain. So if you bought that house for 200 grand, you could sell it for 700 and not pay any taxes. Okay. But if you make 10% of that subject to income taxes, then in my example, you'd be paying taxes on 50 grand. It cost you about 3,700 bucks. That's a lot of $40 a year saving. So I don't depreciate improvements or replacements or the house itself, just because it sets you up for a situation where you may owe taxes later when otherwise you wouldn't have. It's one of the only deductions I don't take. As you'll be able to tell by the time I'm finished with this, we're pretty aggressive. We like to take lots of good deductions that are legal. Communication, cell phone, internet. Certainly this little thing right here, I use it for business all the time, right? I got my calendar on, I'm talking to clients and yada, yada, yada. So I'm going to write off a pretty big percentage of my internet, cell phone. Internet, same thing. Internet's not a home office expense. You use internet differently than you use electricity, okay? You use it more like your cell phone. So it's not 0% business. It's not 100% business. You know your usage better than I. I'm sure it's probably, you know, if you're rather active, it's probably 70, 80, 90%. Again, we're not talking big bucks here, okay? Internet's what, 60 bucks a month. let's say $100 a month. That's $1,200. Saves you maybe $200 in taxes. Okay. Again, we're not talking big bucks here. Take it. Audit risk. Who gets audited? We get audited. Self-employed people get audited. People that file a Schedule C. If you have a W-2 and mortgage interest and maybe even some dividends and income, all that information is getting reported to the IRS. Okay. Unless you leave it off of your return, which is not a good idea because they're getting a copy of all that stuff. You're not going to get audited. Okay. But self-employed people get to report their business miles. They get to report their business meals. They get to report all these expenses that no third party is corroborating. So that's who gets audited. And when we prepare returns for people, we prepare them ready to be audited, assuming they will be. Not that it happens often, but we want to be ready just in case it does. Problem when you get audited is if they drill that well and they hit oil, they're going to go back to the next 3 years and drill a well. And then they're going to keep drilling until in the future until they hit a dry hole. So they go back and back. You get audited this year and you end up owing, you're going to get audited next year. And if you're clean, then they'll go away, typically. But if they get oil again, they're going to go the next year. It's not much fun. What are some red flags, though? Business meals, I always tell my self-employed people, be pretty aggressive in your business meals. Okay, everyone's either a customer or a source of referrals. Your old high school buddy flies into town and y'all go get a cheeseburger and a Coca-Cola and talk about old times. And how's real estate business going? Going great. That's a business meeting, even if you didn't pay for theirs. If you just paid for yours and they paid for theirs, right? Yeah, that's business meeting. In an audit, you'll just have to say who you're with, what was the business purpose, business development, certainly, where'd you go, how much did you spend? Be pretty aggressive. I mean, not pretty much, but I write off every meal that I have over $5. I had to have been with somebody, right? And again, I have hundreds of clients. So be pretty aggressive in that regard. But I did have one guy, he had 62 grand of revenue and he had $48,000 worth of business meals. I said, Mike, you're going to get audited. I mean, that's how you eat. Well, besides that. And yes.
Oh, you can finish. I just had a question.
Okay, let me finish my little fun story. But anyway, so I said, Mike, you're going to get audited. Well, he showed me what he had. And it was spot on, man. He had name, where he was, when he was there, how much he spent, why he was there. It was golden. All right, we'll file it. We did. 2 years later, we get audited. He gets audited. So I troops on downtown to Commerce Street, the IRS office down there, and presented our information. And I was there for 45 minutes, no tax due, no change. It was, rock solid. But that's the kind of thing that they'll look at. I mean, if you're going to claim 100,000 miles and it's just you and you're not a trucking company, that's probably a pretty big red flag. Okay. If you're going to claim you made, 50 grand profit during the year and you had $45,000 worth of charitable contributions, that's probably going to elicit some interest in the IRS because they're going to wonder, how'd you keep a roof over your head and how'd you eat on 5 grand? So it's situations like that. I will take a position, as I did with my buddy who claimed all those gigantic business meals. I will take a position if I feel comfortable that we can support it in an audit. Cost 45 minutes of my time to fight that. It saved him a lot of money. The next year, by the way, he made 350 grand gross revenue. He was planting seeds. He was a salesman. Okay. So he sold fine jewelry, custom-made jewelry that his boss made. Okay, everybody cool where we are? What you can write off, how you can write it off, audit risks. Let's talk about the fun stuff, okay? You've heard of an LLC, limited liability company. There's no such thing as an LLC tax return. The IRS views an LLC as a disregarded entity, so just the creation of an LLC does nothing for you. You still report your activity on Schedule C. The profits are still going to be subject to income and self-employment taxes. So there's no new magical deductions that you get by being an LLC, okay? Certainly there are legal reasons perhaps to be an LLC. Limited liability company kind of connotes some sort of protection so that if you run over a little old lady on the way to an appointment, they can't sue you and go after your yacht or your house in Aspen or your Lamborghini, right? Protects your personal assets. So that's a good legal reason. I'm not an attorney, don't take my legal advice any more than you would take my decorating advice, that either. But it doesn't do anything for you tax-wise. Okay. However, there is something that you can do with an LLC. You can make an election to have that LLC taxed as an S Corp. What's the difference? From an income tax perspective, there's no difference. You pay the same income taxes on the profits of a sole proprietorship, Schedule C, as you will on an S Corp. However, the profits of an S Corp are not considered earned income. Therefore, they're not subject to that self-employment tax. So you can quickly see 15.3% goes down to 0. Okay, I need to be an LLC S Corp. And that's a recommendation we give to many of our clients. Okay, that's how I'm set up. There are 3 circumstances where I would not make that recommendation to make the S Corp election if you're an LLC. The first is the IRS says nobody works for free. So if you make that S Corp election, you have to pay the officer, you, a quote, reasonable wage. The IRS gives no instruction as to what a reasonable wage is. We typically target 30% of expected profit. But you got to get set up on payroll. You got to get set up with the Texas Workforce Commission, pay state unemployment taxes, which are a couple $100 the first year, 40 to 50 bucks thereafter every year, unless you lay yourself off. You got to file quarterly with the TWC, a report, a payroll tax report. You have to file quarterly with the IRS. You have to issue a W-2. So you got to run payroll. So if somebody comes to me and their profits are $35,000 or less, that's profits, not gross, but gross minus expenses, profits are $35,000 or less, I won't recommend it because, yeah, you're going to save a little bit of self-employment tax, but it's going to be eaten out by the cost of doing payroll. Whether you hire me to do it, ADP to do it yourself, there's an administrative hassle and an actual real dollar hassle to running payroll. So bottom line is, if you're not making enough, I won't recommend it. The second reason, and it's very rare, but I have seen it sometimes, might be a situation where you're close to retirement age and start taking Social Security in the next 2, 3 years, 4 years maybe, and you need to add to your Social Security trust account so you'll get the biggest Social Security benefit you can. Again, that's very rare because in most cases, the Ponzi scheme that Social Security is, you're putting in way more money than you'll ever take out unless you live to be 137, right? But I have seen a couple of instances where it made sense not to make that S Corp election because we wanted to bolster the taxpayers' Social Security benefit. But again, that's a pretty rare deal. You're always almost a losing game. The third reason, let's say you're making 300 grand a year, 400 grand a year in your real estate activity. You're going to be at a high tax income tax bracket, 32, 35, 37%, right? You can actually set aside 25% of that sole proprietorship income because it's subject to earned income tax, or it's earned income subject to self-employment tax. You can just set aside 25% up to 61 grand for 2022 into what's called a SEP, a self-employed pension, and get if you're in the 35% tax bracket, get 35% tax benefit on each one of those dollars you put into that SEP. So go ahead and pay the Social Security Medicare tax, which, by the way, the bulk of that is Social Security, and that stops after you've hit 140 in income. Anything over 140 is only subject to 3%, 2.9%, the Medicare portion. So if I have a client making 250, 280, 300 grand a year, sometimes I won't recommend making an S Corp election because we can put so much money into a SEP, 61 grand. Hopefully they haven't spent it all, right? So bottom line, there's kind of a range between about 30, 35 grand and 250, 280, 300 grand in profit, not gross, after expenses, where it can make real sense to make an S Corp election. And, we do that with a lot of our clients. And it saves them a lot of money. Give you an example. As a sole prop, $100,000 profit, income taxes plus $15,000 in self-employment taxes, right? That same 100 grand of profit, we do 30% of wage profit is what the officer wages. So we'll pay the officer 30 grand, pay Social Security tax and Medicare tax on 30 grand, which is 4,500 compared to 15,000. See where it is? That's where the savings is. Okay. And again, it's a great way to keep more money in your pocket. There's another thing, a couple more things about S Corps. The first is, in all my born days, career, forever, ever, beginning of time, I've had one S Corp audit back in 2007. We have 3 to 5 Schedule C audits a year, which is a pretty good batting average for doing, 3,000, 4,000 returns. So it's not, our clients don't get audited very much, but it's way more than S Corps. S Corps don't get audited. Now, if you don't pay reasonable wages as an S Corp officer, there's a line on the S Corp return, line 7, compensation of officers. If that's 0, well, yeah, you're sticking your hand up saying, come audit me because you're not paying, quote, reasonable wages, clearly, okay? But S Corps very, very, very rarely get audited. Now, I've heard that's going to change. A lot of the stuff over the last year, the IRS is really focusing more on S Corps. Primarily, it's related to the reasonable compensation issue. I think I read somewhere there were like 200,000 S Corp returns that were filed that had zero as reasonable compensation for the officer. I mean, it's just, cherry picking, right? They're going to kill those guys that are doing that. We've seen some clients that we pick up news said, "You're right, you made 150 grand, you didn't pay yourself any wages." That's like saying, "Come on at me." But we hear that's going to happen. I mean, right now the IRS is such a mess and so understaffed and what have you, but who knows when they're going to pass a bill and they got a lot more money and they can update their systems and hire a bunch of quote enforcers, which I'm sure you all have heard in the news, and then it gets yucky.
That's all passed, isn't it? I mean, that is going to happen.
In my opinion, nothing's passed yet.
Okay, they didn't get the IRS that extra 85. Okay, I was thinking that part
Not
was
yet.
okay.
It's going to happen. It has to.
You think so?
This is the worst. It's unbelievable. I'll get to that at the end, but it's unbelievable what I believe we've gone through, taxpayers and preparers.
Can I ask you one question real quick on the S Corp?
Yeah.
Or does that have to be set up? Would I have to have done it last year to file it for 2022? Would I have had to have it last year?
No, you could set it up now in 2022.
And then run this whole year that way?
But not 2021. That bus has left the terminal.
Yeah, correct. Okay, thank you.
Let's see here. Something else you can do. If mom and dad own an unincorporated business, that can be an LLC or a sole proprietorship or a partnership, or just mom and dad are the partners, you can hire your minor children and pay them a wage, and you don't have to pay Social Security or Medicare tax on the wages. It's our Optima program. And we go down to 6 years old. A 6-year-old can clean the home office, shred paper. Teenagers can bake cookies for open houses or do research or help with advertising, whatever. Kids are great on computers. We have an employment agreement between mom or dad's business and the kiddo. And we have the duties to be performed on the agreement. We pay each kid $8,400 a year, $700 a month. We have a couple of fringe benefits at the bottom of the employment agreement. One is a tuition reimbursement plan that really only affects kids that are in college. Doesn't happen that many very frequently. But the other one is a medical expense reimbursement plan. And that says that mom or dad's company is very generous to its full and part-time employees and will reimburse all out-of-pocket medical expenses. So any co-pays, deductibles, glasses, contacts, braces, anything not covered by insurance or paid for through an FSA or an HSA. In other words, you write a $5 check for a prescription, becomes 100% deductible for mom or dad's company. And you can imagine if you've got 2 kids, let's say 8,000, the math's easier, pay them each $8 grand, that's 16,000, 4,000 of out-of-pocket medical. I just shifted 20 grand from mom and dad's tax rate to 0. It's a great way to keep money within the family, wealth within the family. My son went to Jesuit. Guess who paid $8 grand of his own tuition? Okay. Before he was a Jesuit, my air conditioning broke. Guess who paid for it? It's perfectly legal for a child to contribute to household income. Some of my clients use these dollars they're paying their kiddo to pay for baseball fees or hockey fees or cheerleading camp or summer camp or a new bike or auto insurance when they turn 16. Some of my clients use that money to put it into a 529. It's a great way to keep wealth within the family. And we save people anywhere from 2 to 20 grand a year in taxes on that, just on that idea. There's something else you can do with an S Corp too. It's part of the Internal Revenue Code. I've been doing this for 9 years. I found out last year it has a name. It's called the Augusta Rule. The Augusta Rule says that you can rent your residence out for less than 15 days a year and you don't have to pay tax on the income. It's called the Augusta Rule because the masters and the guys that live on the fairway at the golf tournament, right? They rent their place out for 14 days to Tiger Woods and they don't have to pay tax on the income. So let's say I have a little CPA firm in Frisco. And like I said, I live real close to my house. And I want to have 12 monthly meetings and 2 semi-annual budget meetings, 14, okay? With my wife, the state of Texas says she owns half my business, whether I like it or not. We talk about it all the time. I reached out to the Stonebriar Weston, which is just down the road, and said, how much to rent a small business meeting room for less than 10 people with coffee service and continental breakfast? They said $660. Great. Can you send me that in an email? So now I have fair market value of a business venue in my neighborhood. Well, I'm not going to have my meeting there. I'm going to have it at my house. So my S Corp pays me $660 times 14. I just created a $9,240 deduction out of thin air. once a month, I get on Word and I say the meeting began on August the 7th at 9 a.m. We talked about July's financial results and what new clients I picked up and where I'm going to be speaking. And we're going to get interns and all those conversations where I'm going to network, all those conversations she and I have over the course of a month. I document on a 1 to 2 page document. I'm charging a market rate. It's less than 15 and I have minutes to the meetings. And again, I created a $9,240 deduction out of thin air, saved me about $2 to $3 grand a year in taxes. Those are legal things to do. Google Augusta Rule, you'll see what I'm talking about. Google hire your kids, you'll see what I'm talking about.
We can do that for our home. Like say I wanted to do a barbecue in my backyard for clients. Could I do it in that similar situation?
Yep. Your business, now, you have to do it through an S Corp. You can't do it through a sole proprietorship.
Oh, okay.
Has to be done through an S Corp or a partnership, a separate entity. It can't be done through a sole prop based on the research that I've done related to this deduction. So we want to make sure we do it right. But again, it's one of those other reasons to maybe you need to be an S Corp, you know. Yes.
What's the best way to kind of, I guess, file or structure things if one spouse is self-employed and the other spouse has like a traditional W-2 situation?
You're talking about married joint or married separate, right?
Yes.
Texas is a community property state. Everything's 50-50. So in Texas, if you're a married couple and you file married separate, half of your income's on your return, half of your income's on his. Half of his is on yours, half of his is on his. Mortgage interest real estate taxes, 50%. Everything's split 50% except kids. You can't split kids up, right? So you end up paying in Texas, married separate, you end up paying anywhere from $1,500 to $4,500 plus in more combined taxes because you're using the least favorable tax brackets and you lose certain deductions and credits. So I've never seen a situation where it makes sense for a Texas couple to file married separate because of that reason. So bad idea. Don't do that.
Good to know.
Actually, there was a situation where had this couple, and I'll use round numbers, had this couple filed together, they were going to get a $3,000 refund. Okay. Well, one of the spouses owed $1 bazillion in taxes. So had they done that, they wouldn't have got the $3 grand. So they filed married separate and they both got a $1,000 refund. And so this $1,000 went to pay off one spouse's debt and the other spouse got a $1,000 refund. Cost them $1,000 to do that, right? It went from getting a $3,000 refund combined to a $2,000. And oh, by the way, the $3 grand would have paid that debt off quicker, but that's what they wanted to do. So, okay, I'll do what you want to do. You realize it's costing you $1,000 to do. Yeah, but we want to get some sort of a refund. Okay.
I think that's my wife's biggest complaint. We never get a refund.
You got to pay more in.
Right. But we celebrated when we only had $6,000 in taxes last year instead of whatever it was the year.
Well, trust me, you want to owe $1 million in taxes because that means you made about $4 million, okay, or at least $3. What's going on in 2022? Nothing's really changed yet. I mean, you and I both hear on the news, oh, they're going to raise taxes. Oh, they're going to raise the capital gains rate. Oh, they're going to do this. Nothing's happened yet, except they are sending 1099Ks to folks who get money from those Cash Apps, Venmo, Zelle, that kind of stuff. And hugely bad idea. I cannot believe the IRS is doing that.
No.
If I send you over $600 to mow my yard, I'm supposed to say it's business, and then you're going to get a 1099K, okay, from Venmo or whoever. If I give you $600 because we went out to dinner many times and hey, you cover it and I'll just Venmo you some money, right? Supposedly on Venmo, there's a button you push saying it's personal. What if I forget to push the button? I'm used to paying him to mow my yard. Now I got to pay him another $600 because I owe him for dinner. And I just leave it there. And so now all of a sudden he gets this 1099K that says $1,200, 600 of which was just a fee to reimburse him for lunch, right? You see the mess?
And you can't reverse
relying on you and me to push the right button and even know what the heck we're pushing as to whether or not you get a 1099K. And if you get a 1099K, the service is getting one too. So if it's not on your return and handled somehow, they'll send you a letter saying, hey, I saw you got this 1099K, here's your tax bill. Then you got to fight with them and then it's a mess.
Is the button there already? I haven't seen
My
it.
understanding it is. I don't know. I don't use any of those apps. Or I don't use any of those, but I've understood, people have told me that you can tell it goods and services, or you can tell it friends and family or some such.
Is that starting this year or starting last?
Starting 2022,
Oh.
starting this year. So they'll send those Ks out in 2023. And I will predict that you will get in the news about how unbelievably botched this whole idea is.
Crazy.
Really good. Like the IRS doesn't need to create more messes for themselves. Let me talk real quick about the way it's been since 2020 and 2021. The IRS has shut down for over 5 months. I got a guy that got his refund like 2 days ago, and he filed in February of last year. Okay, it's horrible. They're still sitting on millions of unprocessed 2019 and 2020 returns. This summer, I saw a statistic that said if you called the IRS to ask them a question about something or find out where your refund was or whatever, you had a 6.73% chance of somebody actually answering it. And it was that bad on we have a secret tax practitioner hotline. It's a joke. Call 15 times. We're sorry, we're too busy. Call back later. Click. Or you finally, after waiting on hold for an hour and a half, hi, I'm so-and-so, here's my badge number, click, and they drop the call. It's horrible. And it's really, really, really frustrating because their computers never sleep. So if you're late on making a payment or this or that, you sent in a response 6 months ago and you're still getting these notices from the IRS saying, hey, give us the money, give us the money, give us the money, but it's not a situation where you owe any money because the IRS didn't take something into consideration or whatever. Getting all that stuff resolved, and there's no way to deal with them through email. It's all through mail. And, they had, at one point, there were 11 million pieces of unopened mail in their trucks on their parking lot in Austin and in Ogden, Utah. It's a mess. It's been horrible. It really, really, really frustrating. But hopefully it'll get better, right? If they give them some money and get their systems updated, at least let us start emailing you. Come on. This is the 21st century, guys. But it's been a real mess. Now I'm going to open it up for questions. What time we got? Oh, good. Yeah, perfect timing. Yes, sir.
I actually do keep my mileage on Mile IQ. I have a question for you. Like, let's say this last weekend, I went from my house over to Lake Levant to do a preview, and then I went straight back home. How would I consider that on?
Do you have a home office?
Yes, I do.
Then the moment your commute is 15 steps down the hall.
Okay.
Commuting is not deductible.
Okay.
So your commute is 15 steps down the hall. So your first trip, since you have a home office, is business.
All right. That's good to know. All right. Then I got to reclassify some things.
Yeah. You're a better man than I could never remember to do it.
I haven't done or updated it in 3 months. So I'm just going to go on a swipe fest for 15 minutes when it comes due. So.
Well, that's kind of what I'm doing. In a way, I'm just not doing all the swiping. I'm just kind of in my brain 80%.
And then, like you said, it'll email you a full Excel spreadsheet on whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
this location here,
Monthly.
we come here for education, but this is not my home office. You can't claim this?
Do you have a office here?
No.
But
You
we
have an
pay
office in your
dues
home?
here to use here.
Huh?
We pay dues here,
That doesn't matter.
so we can use office here.
As long as you don't have your office with your name on it, which is nobody else's,
You can claim.
you can claim a home office if you've got an area in your home where you do work. And it can be the corner of a bedroom, corner of a game room. Doesn't have to be the
So
whole
like
room.
coming here today, I could write this as education.
Yeah, your commute's 20 steps down the hall.
Yay.
You know what I'm saying? Again, I can't do that because I got a real live office that I paid for, right? So I can't write off my drive from my home to my office.
So that's another good
3
option.
blocks, it's golden. Yeah.
Say if I were to get an office here and instead on a Saturday, I don't want to go to the office first. I want to go straight out to Lake Levant and then come back. How would I classify that?
Technically, you're supposed to take any driving that you did for the business and subtract out the commute miles.
Oh, okay.
Okay, technically, that's how it happens.
Okay.
Now, the IRS has relaxed that rule a little bit. When I was talking about exclusive, you don't have anywhere else to go. For example, I could do all my work and visit clients, et cetera, at my office, but do my books for my CPA firm at home. And they've relaxed it a little bit. And I probably could get away with that depending on the auditor. A lot of this has to do with the auditor. You get a jerk auditor, which 80% of them are. It's a battle. You got to put your armor suit on and bring a big sword. And, it's not fun, but
and I guess with that logic, anything that you're recording as personal that really is not real estate related, that's going to cancel out those few miles that you would actually use,
right,
as first business.
Right.
Okay, I see the point. Okay.
Any other questions, folks? Well, we are taking new clients, although it's kind of difficult right now to schedule a meeting in the next week or two. We do help lots of self-employed people. Yes, we are Ramsey Trusted, which is Dave Ramsey. I've been part of that organization for, I think, about 8 or 9 years. Sat through several interviews. They wanted to make sure my philosophies on taxes and things and finances were consistent with theirs. We've been Living Magazine's Best of Frisco Plano for 4 out of the last 5 years, including the last 3. So if you would mind going to Living Magazine Best Of, you can go on right now and vote for Joe Hockaday CPA as the CPA. We would appreciate that, early and often. What else? We were voted a Dallas Observer CPA of the year last year, which is kind of fun.
Are you on social media at all?
Yeah, we have a website, hockadaycpa.com.
I got that.
Which is on our email, and then we're on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
And I'll post stuff up on there, like deadlines and little things I've read that, hey, be on the lookout for this. Little tidbits like that every now and then.
If you don't mind, can I just post I just took like a 10-second video of some of the things that you were doing and then tag you on Instagram?
Sure, that's fine. Absolutely. We do have an early bird contest. And it used to be what we would do is if you got us all your stuff by February 15th, we gave you a 10% discount up to $25. Okay. Well, this year we changed it. First of all, we moved it back to February 28th, which is today. And if you get us all your stuff by February 28th, you get a raffle ticket. And on March the 2nd, Wednesday, Texas Independence Day, a very important day for us Texans. Okay. We're going to have a drawing. We're giving away 10 $500 Amex cards and 10 $100 Amex cards. And I'll wear my Texas flag shirt that day, and we'll take pictures and post them up wherever we can post them and make some fun out of this. But it is today, folks.
I got it right here. Get on it.
Right.
Joe?
Yeah.
Do you guys do like cost segregation and stuff with rental properties? Do you get into that?
Yes, he's coming one day.
Quicken for that?
Yeah, next week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, quick and dirty. Yeah, I'll talk about that next week. But yeah, we do.
Come this next week.
We're not engineers, so I'm not going to go into a big 35.
But you handle all that. If I came to you, I wanted to get into that.
This is. When I talk, I'm going to talk about that stuff next week about you own a 35-floor building and the process that goes through. But you can do that for a single-family residential property as well. And sometimes it helps you, sometimes it's a waste of time. So it's important to know you got to know what situation you're in because of some of the limitations related to real estate losses.
Anybody else have questions?
Anything else?
Hope to see everybody.
Thank you all for being attentive. Nobody fell asleep. I don't think so.
I'm gonna let you draw. You've got like a Starbucks gift card and an open house registry notepad. And make sure you draw my name on the second, okay? I want to.
Number 1. It is Scott Molina.
Scott, and he gets to enter the fund. Okay.
Oh, sure, you'll accept it. Sure. She gets 50% of it. Somebody send Scott an email right now.
Just know that I just have one. So that's all right.
Just one
drawing.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you. I put them together so they go.
Well, thank y'all very much. I appreciate it. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
Okay, back to Slaying Dragons.
Get back after. I hope you enjoyed your hour away.
I did. I enjoyed my hour away. I got to not look at tax returns for a little bit. No, it is fun. It's kind of like building a puzzle.
Yeah, what's a typical tax return for an agent that's less than brand new? 100 grand.
Schedule C?
Yeah.
Well, cost of return depends on three things. It depends on complexity. If you get one rent house, you're less complex than if you have 10. Depends on organization, how well the information is presented to us. If you give me a bag of receipts,
Yeah.
it's going to be really pricey.
Yeah. Right.
But you give me a spreadsheet that's easy to follow, and then complete is how complete your information is. You look at your return and see an email, say, what about these 5 things? I set you aside. I work on that guy. 3 days later, you get back with me with 3 of them. I still need these other 2, and I set you aside. That can cause the cost to go up. But typically, a realtor return is going to be probably in the $500 to $700 range. Would be my guess. Just depending on the activity and organization.
Make sure you have help.
Thank you again.
My pleasure. We're the cheapest game in town.
Yes, I did. Right.
At this point, we haven't even made $500.
I don't think you need to worry about that. Guys, have a great week. Go sell.
That's right.
Next, I was thinking, that's a great idea, especially like a brand. Yeah, just myself too. Put your own card on there. Put your card on there and you put the time at the house, whatever. And so that comes from.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, she's our sister. And so she brings some of the door hangers by. So I've got some of those.
Listing
ones that
potential.
says free CMA for this with me. Or no, free CMA, and then I have one that says free home warranty. Okay, yeah. So yeah. I brought those for you. Thank you. Knock those doors.
Yes, absolutely.
Good to see you. Good to see you. You just were very helpful. Well, good. Are you going to be here next week?
Yes.
Okay.
No,
She hadn't signed it.
you don't cancel anything.
Do you have an extra one of these?
I do.
I've never had this happen, but now you are.
Thank you. You're welcome.
No,
It's
it is.
okay if I email you about
So now
the
they have it.
coffee. Yeah.
Right, so now
Thank
you
you.
can sign up. This week, but
You may want to put that in special. Representation based off appropriate results or something like that.
and then we'll go one in command and put
Like this, you
Oh, you could do.
Do you have different ones now, or is it still under one?
this will be.
Then archive the prior. Yeah, archive the prior.
So she wouldn't be able to sign it.
Well, you're going to be.
See, I sent it to her. She hasn't signed it yet.
It's like you're giving her. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, I could put
Don't
like.
even worry about it.
In like the store.
Yeah, if you archive it, that email's still out there. More than likely, that email is assigned to have proposed fire. You can't sign it at any point.
Cool, I didn't know that.
Anybody have an open house next
And then
weekend?
it will tell you. DocuSign.
I will. I've got some open
I'll
house
say-
door hangers.
Email has passed to.
Anybody that has one?
Okay. I didn't know that. All right.
Is it okay if I email?
Yup. That's how that works. Yeah, well, good luck on that.
Yeah. Actually, it's
Sounds like an adventure.
it's going to be a better situation, I think, for her in the long run.
Nowhere from.
Financially.
Stuff for family members that has it.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm happy to push it out. I know, that's what she said. That's what she said, and I know. Been in your shoes. Yeah. Feel the pain. Yeah, I'll reach out. We'll set up a time and get together. So, yeah, take some cookies to go. Absolutely. Doug, it's always good to see you.
Wonderful seeing you as well.
Thanks for asking for this.
We sincerely appreciate it. We are trying to get a little bit more of a variety of classes.
Like, what do you guys mainly do? You want a cookie? Where I put them up? You know, it's Fat Tuesday tomorrow.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show up fat.
I know, it's because I'm already at that, but oh, well, tomorrow's Fat Tuesday.
Right. I was a manager.
Oh, okay.
And I know that.
I'm sure.
So,
Can you turn the Zoom on?
yes,
I don't like it.
on Wednesday morning, I went to work, got there early. My home office was in New Jersey. And just as I opened the door, my phone was ringing and this gal, she goes, "Is this Mr. Williams?" I said, "Yes." Mr. B said, "Who's our boss? He needs to talk to you right now." So I picked up, "Sure." So I'm trying backing up. "Oh, you had a good day off yesterday. What makes you think you know to close down the office?"
I've been fighting a headache for 3 days. I kind of had it with it.
He had it for like 5 minutes.
So I don't figure sitting here 2 or 3 more hours is like
Everything shuts down.
different. Well, I hate to say that.
Yeah, I even called. He said, "Hope you guys have a nice day off." Yeah.
Like I'm going nowhere fast, but
I'll see you Friday then.
All flowers from him. I mean,
not gonna be no
this guy.
Or tomorrow or Thursday. I mean, I might be here for a little bit in the morning tomorrow, but.
No, what about Wednesday?
I have to.
That's when the court
hearing.
And that's when I meet
We don't
Well, hey,
attorneys about my guys.
I hate that.
The frustrating thing, I was just there last week and I had to get a call on the way home about
Somebody said Fat Tuesday, I'm like, I have no idea.
briefing or whatever. He's like, oh, and by the way, there's another arraignment hearing next month.
My first New Orleans.
Not even in
you're telling me I'm
I'm
coming
from
back next
Lafayette,
week?
Indiana.
Yeah,
Nothing.
see, the difference is in Lafayette.
Yeah, they call it say
It's
different.
called Lafayette in Lafayette, Louisiana.
Yeah, we say Lafayette.
Yeah.
My first Mardi Gras was when I was helping an old high school friend of mine move from New Orleans from an old apartment to a new apartment. She just